So if you're neurodivergent, whether you're ADHD, autistic, or AuDHD like me, there's a good chance that you're suffering from chronic pain as well. In this video, I'm going to talk about my experience of navigating the medical system with chronic pain, why neurodivergence tends to hurt, and also what can actually help. So you might be noticing that I'm just lying down in bed while I'm delivering this. It's not because I'm lazy. It's basically because I haven't actually been able to sit up, sit down, or walk for more than 5 to 10 minutes for about a year. So this actually happened last year in Thailand, where I was living at the time in Chiang Mai, and a physio basically injured me. And since then, I've basically been suffering from chronic pain for the last 6 months. A bit more than 6 months I've been housebound with that, and mostly having to sort of live life from my bed. So also, like, I think it's important to say, like, I'm not making this video for sympathy, like, that's for sure. The reason actually that I'm covering the topic this week is basically I had a bit of a dilemma a couple of weeks ago. So I tried to start doing my video content, and obviously I just kind of had everything set up. Like, I had like the camera on the stand, like this big light that's shining in my face right now, this screen behind my bed, and basically I tried to kind of prop myself up in bed, kind of sitting up, but trying to make it look like I wasn't actually in bed. After about 5 minutes, basically my pain just started to flare, and what I did was then I actually kind of built this like little fortress on the bed with pillows. In fact, it was probably about 10 to 20 pillows, like just stacked from the bottom of the bed to the top, so that I could kind of like lie down, but sloping sort of down, so it didn't kind of look like I was lying in bed. It didn't work, and basically it just made the pain even worse. So what I did was basically just kind of gave up at that point. I just kind of switched the camera off, decided that I wasn't ready and that I needed to get better, or to at least be able to sit up in bed before starting video content. So I actually had a conversation with a friend then about this, like the week after, and we kind of discussed how, you know, there are a lot of other neurodivergent people also suffering from chronic pain, you know, stuck in bed, basically feeling like, you know, we can't do the things that other people do. And I kind of felt like, you know, sometimes we basically just have to start doing the things that we feel that we need to do before kind of waiting to get better, if you see what I mean. So yeah, that's why I'm starting my video content now. I'm having actually a pretty bad day pain-wise, and I've also been gaslighted by the physio team that I'm dealing with today, so it's not a great day. I'm not going to have a load of energy, but I'm going to give it my best. So the medical system is trash, let's face it, but when you're navigating it with physical pain and operating on a neurotype that no system seems to understand, it's a bit of a challenge, to say the least. I've spent the last 6 months back in the UK going from one useless physio to another, from one useless doctor to another, dealing with those people who charge money to people who they claim to help when they're not actually able to help them, has definitely caused me more stress than the physical pain itself. So if you're dealing with a chronic musculoskeletal injury, similar to me, then basically this is my findings of the medical system, so that you don't have to basically learn it yourself like I had to. So first of all, most physios are pretty useless unless the injury that you have is basic enough to be fixed by my 15-year-old niece. Also, don't go straight to expensive doctors if the first few physios that you try don't actually work out. That can actually just drag things out for much longer. So what I recommend is actually just trying to find a specialist practitioner who has decades, ideally, of experience diagnosing and fixing the exact area of pain that you're dealing with. For some conditions, chiropractors or osteopaths can actually be better positioned to do the diagnosis for you. What I actually found was that the chiropractor was really good at the diagnosis, but like the treatment that they did basically lasts 2 minutes and did nothing. So also osteopaths, which are kind of similar to chiropractors, but they basically just tend to do a more comprehensive treatment. So you could try an osteopath if the chiropractor is not working out. Also, if you do find a specialist physio or chiropractor, that could actually potentially save you thousands on pain doctors or other types of doctors who will basically just charge you 10x the amount, and just to kind of reveal that they're useless eventually. So if there appears to be nothing wrong with the area of the body that you're actually feeling the pain, like it's not showing on scans, they can't seem to find anything with it, learn deeply about referred pain, because often the pain generator can actually be in a different part of the body to where you're actually feeling the pain. And actually many practitioners, probably, I don't know statistics, but like maybe more than 90% of them might just not diagnose it. And actually, I sort of went through like 4 or 5 different physios, 4 different doctors before I actually found somebody who could say, oh yeah, that's actually the upper lumbar basically that's referring that pain, rather than all of the other things that these people have been trying. Also, wear your lanyard to medical appointments. I think if anything, like I haven't been doing this most of the time, but I think if anything, like just letting people know, that you're neurodivergent, and actually for most of us, like we don't really need anything more than just people being as kind to us as we are to them. But this is society, and especially in the medical system, we're going to come across a lot of difficult, people basically. So wear your lanyard. All it takes is one asshole doctor, and you might find yourself being kicked out of their office, which is what happened to me. I'm going to link to an article that tells more about that story in the description. Not everyone will agree with this one, but use AI to learn deeply about your injury or the condition that you have. So obviously don't take it as medical advice, but it's going to be a lot faster to use Claude to learn about it than spending like 4 or 5 years reading research papers, which is basically what you'd have to do to get the same amount of information. The other thing is, don't trust any physios or doctors blindly. I think I'm a good example of why, you shouldn't do that. This injury that I have, as mentioned, it was caused by a physio. It was then actually made worse by 4 other physios who weren't able to handle it. And basically it was stretched out to become kind of an even more chronic period of pain by incompetent and grossly overpriced doctors who were quite happy to recommend things that just had nothing to do with the injury that I have. So they're not always going to have good intentions. And this is why we need to learn as much as we can, so that we're in a position to actually scrutinize the suggestions that they make. So I'm going to talk a bit about the AuDHD chronic pain overlap. And basically, if you're AuDHD, you're a lot more likely to suffer from chronic pain than all of the people around you, or than most of the people around you. The research is still catching up, and most of it just focuses only on ADHD or autism alone, rather than obviously having a clear picture of the combined neurotype that we actually live in. In a survey of around 7,000 adults in the UK, the ones who had high ADHD symptom scores had about 3 times more chance of having extreme pain, and that's even after accounting for physical health conditions. So there was also actually a Swedish study that followed women for a period of about 16 to 19 years. These women had been diagnosed with either autism or autism and ADHD. And basically what it found was that 3/4 of them had suffered from chronic pain, and widespread pain showed up in about 1/3 of them, and that's 5 times the rate of neurotypical women in the same age group. Also, one study showed that in a group of people who had fibromyalgia, 50% of them actually also met the threshold for ADHD. So why does this happen? In one study of autistic adults, the group actually had normal pain thresholds, but they rated pain above those thresholds as more intense. So researchers call this a pro-nociceptive profile, and what it basically means is that the same injury can register as more pain, and the pain can take longer to settle. So the other reason is joint hypermobility. And actually, it shows that there are around 50% of neurodivergent people have hypermobility, and that's compared to a fifth of the general population. Basically, what that means is that your collagen is stretchier and your joints are looser. And when your joints are looser, you're basically more prone to having small injuries and those types of strains that kind of don't go away as easy. So to summarize the science on that, neurodivergent people are basically more likely to get injuries in the first place, and we're also more likely to amplify the pain to the point where it becomes chronic, which means that it lasts for more than 3 months. But there are actually ways of managing that pain amplification and reducing it, which I'm going to talk about now. So first of all, just learn how pain actually works. So it's actually been proven that just knowing that the nervous system can continue amplifying pain long after the tissue that caused the injury has actually healed can reduce pain and reduce disability. So as somebody who has AuDHD, just basically treat this as you would treat anything else that you become obsessed with. Just learn as much as you can about it. Also, just make yourself comfortable, right? I think I'm kind of demonstrating that right now, maybe. Recording a video, lying down. But yeah, like when, your whole life is basically reduced to one room, just make that room great. Invest in decent pillows. Like right now I'm using this cervical pillow. So I was actually having neck pain from just lying down for too long. And basically this just cradles and supports my neck while I'm lying down. It's also much better support for sleep as well. So recommend that, super cheap on Amazon. Also, if you're not able to have a full-on memory foam mattress, maybe at least just get a memory foam topper if you're able to. They're a bit cheaper, but it actually makes a huge difference, and especially if your pain is back related. For cold months, invest in a fan, which you might actually hear in the background now. Yeah, I'm using it while I'm recording because it's actually roasting in the UK right now, and I'm not going to lie here boiling in pain and recording a video. So invest in a fan. Also, even like a small AC unit, you can kind of get them for around £50, which is, I guess, like around 65, 70 bucks on Amazon. Also moisturize. So like dry skin, I think can, affect us and bother us like a lot more than it does neurotypical people. And sometimes we can go through periods of our life without even realizing that. So yeah, obviously like probably the women who are watching this are already doing that, but some of us need to be told. So get a decent face moisturizer, a decent body moisturizer. At the moment, I'm using this CeraVe PM facial moisturizing lotion, and also the moisturizing cream tub that they do. So with the tub, it's just so much easier to grab it than those like kind of bottles that you have to press down. And also it's actually like a really good quality formula for the price. So I recommend going for that. Put it on after every shower. I just find that I'm like so much more comfortable in bed when I've got moisturizer on. Also, just find small sensory pleasures that you can kind of reach for when you're in bed. So for me, that has mostly been like a rotation of herbal teas. I'm pretty obsessed with tea, to be honest. It's a bit of a special interest. So I'm always buying like new ones and trying out new ones and like making different blends. I think little things like that can, you know, keep us going. And invest in like just a tray to put on your bed so that you can just reach for your tea directly and not have to kind of bend around to the table to grab it. Also invest like in a decent flask, like something like this, so that, you know, it's easy to sip it while you're lying down as well. So yeah, just kind of like explore, you know, what you're able to experience from bed, like instead of basically mourning the things that you're not able to do right now. I find that that helps. So some therapeutic tools can be useful as well. One of them is heat. I think a lot of people who have been dealing with chronic pain will know about their heat blankets. At the moment, what I'm actually using is this electric hot water bottle. So basically, you know, it just has a kind of plug that you can plug in and it's filled with water already, sealed. I actually find that it works a lot better than the heat blankets and the heat cushions. I don't know, it just seems to like penetrate the tissue deeper and make more of a difference. But also be careful about how long you use it for. I actually have this erythema skin discoloration thing because I just basically used the hot water bottle for too long during flare-up. So be careful about that. So the other therapeutic tool that you can just use in bed is just having your own little TENS machine. I mean, they cost about £20, like $25. And they are quite good. Obviously, it's more like temporary pain reduction, but basically they act on pain in two ways. So first of all, they actually bombard the brain or the nervous system with pain signals from the area that you actually place the pads from there. And what that does is it can actually block pain signals so that the pain signals that are actually, you know, causing your pain can't get through as much. The second way that they act on pain is that they actually promote the creation of endorphins, which are the body's natural pain relievers. So the other, and this is actually probably the main tools, maybe I should have mentioned it earlier, but the main tool that I'm using right now for chronic pain, and also that I just use in general for nervous system regulation, is breathwork. So I've actually been using breathwork now for sort of years, ever since I was actually living in Thailand, which was where I started it. Initially, I was using it to kind of process some kind of deep experiences that I had while I was there. Now I'm basically just using it to obviously like reduce pain, but also to actually start meditation and go into meditation. But just as general nervous system regulation, like it really works. And it's not just like, you know, spiritual woo. There are like randomized trials that have been done that actually proves that breathwork reduces pain. And also it's like, you know, one of the main tools that are used in pain management programs. So, you know, it is actually worth doing it. But also, don't just kind of like wait until you have a flare up. Use it as daily maintenance. So I recommend, you know, something like, well, ideally, like if you can do like 3 to 5 short sessions a day, that's better than doing like 1 or 2, but just whatever you're able to manage. So the other one is meditation. So meditation actually, from the research, like it kind of has a pretty modest but real effect on pain. And actually it's generally more effective at improving kind of your mood, which is obviously one of the things that is brought down quite a bit with chronic pain. So the kind of mood and depression issues meditation can actually help with. I have written quite a lot on meditation and breathwork already on my Substack. And if you go there, I'll leave a link to that in the description. And I've also actually got some audios for subscribers as well. So you can access like these 5-minute audios, which are kind of, you know, just make it sort of quick and easy to get started with breathwork and meditation. So the final one there is like, just prioritize rest. I think, you know, we can have like a bit of an awkward or difficult relationship with rest when we're neurodivergent, because we tend to need it more. But, you know, when you are kind of like living in a neurotype which, you know, basically takes on much more of a heavy load from all of the daily interactions with other people and with kind of sensory stuff, you know, we need more rest anyway. But when we're, you know, also stacking chronic pain on top of that, like, there should be absolutely no reason for you to feel guilty for resting. So, you know, on the kind of, you know, difficult weeks or difficult days, like, just try and do low energy tasks. And, you know, when you're having like a real flare up, just rest if that's what you need to do. Whether that's like watching TV, you know, watching some sort of nostalgic, you know, stuff on TV, or just doing kind of creative stuff. So there is actually more stuff that helps, things like self-hypnosis, which does have quite a bit of research behind it. Not the most solid research in terms of like the psychological solutions for chronic pain, but the one that you're actually able to access like for a low cost and easily. And, you know, other things like kind of prepping for appointments and stuff like that. I go into like more detail on all of that other stuff in the Neurodivergent Guide to Chronic Pain. So if you're neurodivergent, suffering from chronic pain, you know, you're dealing with something very difficult that most people are never going to have to deal with. You know, we're not only in constant pain, but we're also having to interact with a medical system that was not only designed for a completely different neurotype, but it's also more likely to gaslight you and oftentimes just like make your pain worse rather than do the thing that it's actually supposed to do, which is help us. So try and like think less about, you know, the systems and the people that make our pain worse than it needs to be, make our experience worse than it needs to be, and just try and focus on the things that are in your control, that you're able to do to basically make your experience a little bit better. And just take it one step at a time, right? Like breathwork, rest, making it to the next appointment, and definitely don't give up. So if you did find this useful, I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and go to the link in the description for the Neurodivergent Guide to Chronic Pain. And if you're still listening, like, thanks for sticking with me. This actually has been a really difficult day for pain for me. So yeah, sorry if I didn't have a ton of energy to put into this first video. But yeah, hopefully that will improve in the future, and have a good one.